Welcome to Beyond the Pod, presented by SodaStick.com.
Brunette, he moves, Brunette back in, he scores! Minnesota has upset the Colorado Avalanche! Andrew Brunette, the game-winning goal!
Here are your hosts, the second greatest scorer in Gopher hockey history, Pat Micheletti, and the second greatest hockey analyst on this podcast, Brandon Mileski.
Hey, welcome to another episode of Beyond the Pod, brought to you from SodaStick.com. As always, I'm Brandon Mileski. Pat Micheletti, the great Golden Gopher, joins me as always. Hello, Patrick.
Good morning, Brandon. Good to see you.
We're about to have the regular season end. Playoffs
Yes.
about to begin. We know our opponents is the St. Louis Blues, so we figured out what they're saying from the other side in this series. We know plenty about the Minnesota Wild. Let's learn more about the St. Louis Blues. And we're pleased to be joined by Andy Strickland, who covers the Blues for Bally Sports Midwest and 590 The Fan, KFNS. Andy, thank you so much for your time. Nice to meet you. Rich, really appreciate it. Before we kind of fully break down the Blues, I would like to get your opinion, or even, I guess, your market's opinion on the Minnesota Wild. We have our own views, but we see them 82 times a year. How does the St. Louis market view the Minnesota Wild as an opponent?
Hold on. First off, can I ask a question real quick?
Sure.
Who's the all-time leading scorer in Minnesota Gopher history?
That would be John Mileski.
Okay. What's the gap between you and him, Pat? How far are we talking now?
You know what? It's about 30 points.
Okay.
And
I bet Pat has way more penalty minutes, though.
I do. That being said, I always, I have so much respect for John Mileski. He's the godfather, in my opinion, of Minnesota hockey. That even if I got there, unless it was a NCAA championship game and I needed 1 point and the team needed to win, I would have not wanted to break his record.
Wow.
Because his respect is,
I don't believe
for
that.
me, is
I don't believe that.
It is true, honestly. No doubt.
Well, the best part is, Pat, is you're second all time in Gopher hockey history, but no one's ever going to catch you guys again because
not in this day and age.
The game has changed into players leave early. They're not going to stay for 4 years.
Yeah, and the game, Andy, has changed so much, over the decades, and but.
All right,
yeah,
Andy, the Blues the St. Louis market. How do you guys view the Minnesota Wild?
Well, I would say the fans think the Blues just have their number, right? And the Blues are going to be able to handle Minnesota because you look at the head-to-head matchups over the course of the last few years. Minnesota, I think in the eyes of the Blues fan, does not present the same type of threat that, say, Colorado would, right? I mean, Colorado gets so much attention. You watch them play. I mean, they just pop, right, in terms of how they play, the speed they play with, the individual star power that they have. But I think people who truly know and follow the NHL closely realize just how good the Minnesota Wild are. I know Billy Guerin very well, have a ton of respect for him. I'm not surprised whatsoever that he's been able to get a team to accomplish as much as they have in a relatively short period of time. You guys have a legit superstar in Kaprizov. You obviously have a proven Stanley Cup winner now in between the pipes, and Marc-Andre Fleury, assuming that he's going to be the guy. And, listen, you got some other complementary pieces. So, and you've had a great year. I think people look at Minnesota as a team that is tough, that is built from a physical standpoint. You guys have size, and you can play a number of different ways. Fiala is a very underrated player. He reminds me of a number of Blues players, who maybe don't get nearly as much recognition as they deserve, but he's a hell of a hockey player who is really, really good in the National Hockey League. I think on the back end, I don't know if people truly give, Minnesota as much credit maybe as they should. You guys can tell me if they should, maybe hype them up a little bit more on the back end in terms of just how good they are defensively. But I think people realize this is going to be a hard series for St. Louis and a very good series. And I don't think anybody would be shocked to see it go to the distance.
Yeah, I agree. I think this one, I mean, look at where they are points wise, right? I mean, they're dead even. Someone's going to finish second, someone's going to finish third. We'll know tonight. But that being said, when I look at it, and a lot of people want to look at the past records of what's happened lately, but let's not forget the Blues D is not the same D that it was when it won the Cup, right? Binnington was out of his mind that year and was really, the catalyst for them winning the cup.
Mhm.
Minnesota doesn't have Parise, Suter, Dubnyk, guys like that. So for me, when I look at it, I only look at it from what they are now and not what they were, a year ago, 2 years ago.
Yeah. And well, 100%. I mean, Minnesota's different even since the trade deadline, right?
Yeah.
Just the addition of the goaltender who I mentioned, obviously Jacob Middleton, who I think is a hell of a hockey player.
Wow. Yeah.
You guys probably
Yes.
didn't even realize just how good this guy
We
was.
did.
No.
San Jose probably didn't realize how good he was. Otherwise, maybe they weren't so quick to get rid of him. And it's hard to believe that he was the last pick in the draft, the year that he was drafted. I think all the way back in like 2014, 2016, something like that. I enjoy watching him play. Plus, he's tough. He's mean. He uses his body well. I like Middleton a lot. And Delorier, gives your team, a little bit of presence. He doesn't play a lot. I don't know how much impact he's going to have in a playoff series, but just his presence alone should give some type of impact. I watched the game pretty closely last night that you guys played against Calgary. I was hoping Johnny Gaudreau would have been able to bury that at the end of regulation.
Yeah.
that would have put the Blues in a
Yeah.
great position heading into tonight. I have no idea how he missed that.
I
It
have
was
no
an
idea either.
unbelievable pass
Of all
from
people, right.
Lindholm. I mean, and he tries to one-touch it, and it just explodes off his blade. I have no
Yeah.
idea how that happened.
Yeah, they got it rigged.
But, if Greenway can truly lock in and be the player that they need him to be, game in and game out over the course of a long playoff series, that could potentially frustrate St. Louis. St. Louis has, and they will rely on this. I mean, I think this is human nature, right? They've got a core group of players who have won before.
Yep.
And I think that gives you a little bit of a inside, maybe mental edge heading into a series that they can be unflappable. They're not going to panic. They're very comfortable starting on the road. It's interesting. The Blues have yet to play a game inside, XL Energy Center this season.
Right.
I mean, the only road game they played, the head-to-head matchup against Minnesota, was the Winter Classic game where the Minnesota Twins play. So, but St. Louis is very comfortable on the road. I feel like it means more to Minnesota than it does to St. Louis to start at home. I could be wrong about that.
Probably right.
I think that would probably give the Wild a little bit of additional energy and maybe allow them to kind of feel like they can get up in the series and utilize the energy that and the excitement they get from their home fans. But St. Louis obviously brings so much depth offensively. I mean, they have the potential tonight, if Ryan O'Reilly can score a goal, to be their 9th player with 20 or more goals.
Wow.
Which I think is the most from a team in the NHL since like
Right.
92, 93. You got to go back to like the Washington Capitals or something. So this team can score. They hang on to the puck. They may not have the eye-popping elite superstar, but they've got guys that are certainly on the edge. And if you watch them close enough, I mean, they play like superstars when you look at Robert Thomas and Tarasenko and Buchnevich and some of these guys.
I was going to ask you about.
I
going to ask you about Tarasenko.
Yeah.
He's playing like a superstar this year. The
Yeah.
last 2 seasons, was barely in the lineup. Had all the injury stuff going on. There were rumors of, maybe they're going to lose him in the expansion draft. There were rumors of trading him and not being able to get the contract together. And all of a sudden now he's put together a career year where it's the most points he's ever had in a single season.
Yeah.
Talk about just kind of the last 2-3 seasons of Vladimir Tarasenko, and are you surprised with how it's turned out this year for him?
Well, I'm surprised that he's had the best year that he's ever had in his NHL career.
Right.
And not just about the points and the fact that he has, reached a career high.
He's playing hard.
He's playing hard, and he's playing in his own end, and he's got a good attitude, and he's his body language has been way better than maybe it has in the past. Not to say that he's had bad body language, but he's always been a guy that when he's frustrated, when he's frustrated. So there's 2 things that I think have contributed to his bounce back season. Number one is obvious. It's the health. I mean, this guy hasn't been healthy the last couple of years. I mean, you have 3 consecutive surgeries on your shoulder. I mean, let alone the physical toll that's going to play and the impact that's going to have on your play, but the mental impact as well. You're going to be a little bit tentative. I mean, he's a guy who, has to play hard. He plays through contact. He needs to be able to be a true power forward, get to the net, score goals in front of the net, and stay there. Drive, dip the shoulder, and use his strength that he has. I mean, this guy has incredible strength. For a guy who's not very tall, people don't think about how strong he is. You can't knock this guy off the puck.
Right.
And he's always been, obviously, a great shooter, but now he's scoring goals in a number of different ways. And he's got incredible, and I mean unbelievable chemistry, guys, with Robert Thomas and Pavel Buchnevich. And I think health obviously has been the biggest impact, but also the addition of Buchnevich. People have no idea how good this guy is either. He's a 30-goal scorer, having a career season. The impact he's had on Tarasenko, just in terms of taking a lot of pressure off of Tarasenko. Obviously, they're both Russian. They didn't know each other before Buchnevich got here, but they become very close friends in a very short period of time. No surprise there. But I think Buchnevich will take some of that heat off of Tarasenko when they go back to the bench. Vladdy, you don't have to address it with the coaches, whatever. You don't have to I'll take some of that pressure off of you. I'll handle it, And I think Buchnevich, his natural way of playing in terms of he's got that natural 200-foot game, I think he's brought a lot of that out of Vladimir Tarasenko. And he's really improved his overall game, guys. And Robert Thomas is an elite true passer. Ooh. In an era of a time in the NHL where we don't have too many pure passers that are left in the NHL, right? You had Joe Thornton, obviously, who's been around for a long time, Backstrom and some of these guys. But in terms of pure passers, guys who are pure distributors who look to, pass first before they look to shoot. Now he's been shooting a little bit more as of late, and he's reached 20 goals, something that he needs to do. Man, these guys are so good together. They use the width of the ice. I'm talking board to board as well as any line in the NHL. And from a production standpoint, they're right up there with the top line in Calgary, right up there with the top line in Toronto as well. All these guys produce. They have the puck, it seems like, the entire time they're on the ice.
Hey, Andy, when it gets to the playoffs, it's so hard to score, right? And the top players, just don't go out there and get 2 or 3 every night. So we look for under the radar guys. If you're looking at Minnesota, we might say a guy like Freddie Gaudreau, right? Plays with Boldy, Fiala, does everything well, just one of those guys.
Yeah.
When I look at the Blues, and correct me if I'm wrong, a guy like Jordan Kyrou, right? I mean, to me, talk about him a little bit and what he brings to the Blues.
Well, he brings pure elite skating ability. We saw that in the All-Star game, right? He won the fastest skater competition. But it's his first 3 steps. It's that explosiveness where he gets that separation against NHL defensemen. I mean, you see him go toe-to-toe with defensemen who can really skate, and he just blows right past him. He had 3 assists in his last game, and it feels like he's starting to get that confidence back. He's been playing on the third line right now with Braden Shen and Ivan Barbashev. I mean, you look at guys who could really show up in a playoff series.
Right.
That's your third line, right? I mean, Shen, Barbashev, Kyrou. I mean, Brandon Saad, who has come here this year, and he's got like 25 goals, something like that on the season. They've got Perron, O'Reilly. I mean, all these different guys that could certainly step up outside of the Tarasenko and Buchneviches of the world. But Kyrou has got to be a guy that he's got to be able to compete for space on the ice. I mean, things are going to be tight in the playoffs. We all know that. And you're not going to have the freedom that maybe you do typically in the month of November, where you can kind of freewheel it a little bit. And he's going to have to play under the guidelines of the head coach. And that's the bottom line for Jordan Kyrou, which means tracking back hard, being committed to playing inside your own end just as much as you are in the offensive end, knowing that you can have an impact on the game and truly help the team win, even in a game where you don't find your name on the score sheet. It's not always about scoring in the Stanley Cup playoffs. And I think he's going to learn that. He was hurt the year that they won the Cup. Not to say that he would have been in the lineup anyway. Who knows? But we all know that they use a number of players throughout the course of a playoff, especially if you go the distance. Guys are going to get hurt. They're coming in and out of the lineup. But he was around a little bit. But he did miss out on some of that. So this is truly his first real playoff experience, unless you want to count, last season. But again, with no fans in the stands and everything, it just wasn't the same, I mean, even the year before with the bubble. This is a true, in my opinion, the first real playoff we've seen since 2019. Nothing against Tampa Bay. They probably would have won it anyway. They're a hell of a team. But when you get fans in the building, home and the road, the travel, all that type of stuff, it just presents a completely different animal. But Jordan Kyrou has elite scoring ability. He was that guy in junior. He can be a game changer, a true game breaker. And when he's confident, which looks like he's getting some of that back and some of that mojo that he had earlier in the season, some of that bounce in his step, the Blues need him to produce. He can't just be a guy out there that is just in the lineup and just playing. He's got to produce, and he's got to help this team win.
All right, Andy, let's talk about the all-important position of goaltending.
Mm.
Pat and I have been talking about this series for quite some time because it's been obvious for a while they're going to face the Blues. So we've been previewing this series, and I think the hope for us is, you kind of hope the Wild have the goaltending edge here, right?
Mm-hmm.
And clearly, Husso has had phenomenal stats this year, but still only played 56 career games. You don't know how he's going to react once you get into a playoff type setting. So my question for you: what is your guy? What's your confidence level in Husso in a playoff series, and specifically, can he carry the load for an entire series?
Is he going to be the guy in game one?
Yeah, he'll be the guy in game one. But like you said, you don't know until you find out, right?
Right.
And let me tell you this about Billy Husso, though. Like he's among the most unflappable individuals you're ever going to meet. I mean, his personality, his energy never changes. He's super, super quiet. The most non-threatening teammate you're ever going to find. You know what I mean? Like he and Jordan Binnington get along great. Like he's not coming in, peacocking a little bit and being like, hey, I just took your job. I'm not giving it back. He's just a really, really nice kid who knows he can play. He's been on this path for a long time, guys. I mean, the Blues, people don't realize, like he was the number one undisputed goaltending prospect in the organization, even when Binnington was down in the minors.
Right.
Binnington was his backup, okay? Chad Johnson gets claimed on waivers from Anaheim, and Billy Husso is hurt with a high ankle sprain. And so Jordan Binnington got the call up and not Billy Husso. And Binnington goes on to win the Stanley Cup. He's got the 6-year contract in his back pocket. He's making $6 million a year. But I'll never forget when Billy Husso was drafted, his first preseason with the Blues. He didn't allow a goal in, I think, 4 or 5 appearances. Now, in the preseason, you don't always play the full 60 minutes, but he played some games late in that preseason against NHL rosters. And I can't tell you how excited this organization was about Billy Husso. Like, he was the guy. And even when he was 19, 20, playing in the top league in Finland, in the best league in Finland, at 19, winning all the major individual awards, leading all the league in all the individual categories, like top goaltender, World Junior gold medal, 2-time World Junior, goaltender for Finland, played in back-to-back years. They won the gold medal one year. He wasn't the starter of the entire tournament that year, but he was still on the team. And then he came back and played the next year. All rookie performer in the American Hockey League. Like, this guy is not just playing well. Like, he is really good. And so sometimes you don't realize it until he gets an opportunity. He's not 21, 22. This guy's like 26 years old. Like, he's a man. He is a professional and a true elite goaltender. I think people always believe that he could be that guy. And now he's getting the opportunity to show that he is that guy. And I'm telling you, when I say this, people inside the organization, they are not surprised to see him have the season that he has right now. They knew he was capable of doing this, and obviously they're going to have an interesting decision to make in the offseason. But we'll see how he does in the playoffs. But if he performs well, I will not be surprised whatsoever.
Okay, Andy, every team has warts, okay? For Minnesota to beat the Blues, what do they have to expose?
Well, their defense, they've got to expose their defense. They got to, get the body on their defense and play them hard and play them physical and see how they react to it. Listen, the playoff series, in my opinion, that's what it comes down to. It's the grind. It's the wear and tear. It's how do you respond? Do you get back up? Are you willing to get back into the fight? Because the Blues are going to score goals.
Yeah,
but they're not a team that just runs and guns it and looks to win 6-4. Okay. They're going to try to win.
They methodically beat you.
Yeah. Oh, they try to win 2-1, but they're so good offensively, they score 4 or 5, if that makes sense. Okay. Yeah. And especially if Minnesota's not disciplined, they'll have no chance, in my opinion. You put the Blues on the power play, they will make you pay. It's not just one unit, it's 2. They've got 2 number 1 units, like elite number 1 units. They both score all the time. When you've got O'Reilly, Perron, and Shannon, these guys on the second unit with Krug, that's an elite power play unit. That's your number 2 unit right now, behind Buchnevich and Tarasenko and Thomas and these guys. With Faulk, who now with Krug being out.
Yeah, I want to talk about Faulk.
And we'll get into that here in just a second. And then the addition of Micheletti, which is now I think allowed, the coaching staff to slide Krug down, be a third pair guy, and truly round out your top four, which is something they wanted to do at the trade deadline. Like, he wasn't the biggest name, right? Everyone's focusing on Ben Sherratt and Mark Giordano. And listen, Doug Armstrong had no interest in any of those guys. I mean, you look at their cap hit, number one, but also they weren't guys that he looked at. They said, hey, could be a good fit here in St. Louis in terms of what we need. They needed a guy like Letty who has experience. This guy's played 121 career playoff games.
Yeah.
And he's 30. I mean, that's a crazy, crazy number. So he's won a cup. He's been deep in the playoffs. You talk about a guy who you guys, I'm sure, are familiar with from his days in Minnesota, a guy who just doesn't really change whatsoever. I mean, his mentality, his body language, and
Great
obviously a pure skater who can defend. He's an upgrade defensively over Torrey Krug, and Krug's a hell of a player too. So, but if you're talking about Minnesota exposing St. Louis, it's going to have to come down to, can the Blues respond to their physicality, in my opinion.
Go ahead and ask about Faulk, Pat.
Well, yeah, I think Justin Faulk has been, when he came over from Carolina, I don't think his career with the Blues started out the way he wanted to, and for whatever reason, but he's been fantastic for you.
Oh, he's been great. I mean, last season too, he was really good as well. I think he's got 16 goals now on the season. That's one off his career high. He's been red hot as of late. He's a plus 40 something. He's probably, if you were to pick an MVP of the team, I mean, you could certainly he'd be right there. Mm-hmm. And I may even say that he is the MVP. Someone asked me that a few weeks ago, and I said Justin Faulk. Because, again, you know what you're going to get from him every single night. His first year here was difficult because Alex Pietrangelo was still here. And he was in the final year of his deal, and it was the elephant in the room. Are they bringing in Faulk to replace Alex Pietrangelo? And now Pietrangelo is going to be here tonight, by the way. Vegas is in town, and they're not making the playoffs, which is interesting how that plays out. Hey, the grass isn't always greener, as we know.
Right.
But I'm a big fan of Justin Faulk just in terms of how he carries himself. Another Minnesota boy, obviously, who's just a really good hockey player. Like, he plays heavier than people realize. And you talk about the heaviness of Minnesota, like a guy like him can handle it. A guy like Parayko can handle it. I think Letty can handle the physicality. Bortuzzo obviously can. It's and offensively, the Blues, they may not have the bone-crushing guys. I mean, Shen is a physical player. Barbashev is a physical player. Maybe they're built a little bit differently than they were in 19, but they've got guys up and down their lineup where the physicality is not going to affect them. They can all play through it, whether it's Perron, Saad, O'Reilly, Tarasenko. These guys are all big, strong guys. Thomas. But Justin Faulk has been better than advertised in his first year here, guys, real quick, because not only you had the elephant in the room with Pietrangelo, which mentally probably was tough for him to deal with. They had him playing the left side, his offside, throughout the course of the season. He would go back and forth. But, right when he got here, first game, they had the banner raising ceremony for the Stanley Cup. He's sitting by himself in the dressing room. Then they go on their first road trip. They go to the Hall of Fame to present the ring. He goes fishing by himself for the day. Then they go to Washington, D.C. for the White House visit. And this guy just walks around by himself all day long in Washington, D.C. So I don't think he felt that connection to the team right away because they were celebrating the Stanley Cup. So I think that was a little bit difficult for him as well. It took him a full year. Say the same thing about Torrey Krug. Last year he wasn't nearly as good as he's been this year.
Since we're talking Minnesota, guys, I got to talk about a hometown friend of mine, Scotty Perunovich. Unfortunately out right now, probably out for the year, right? Mm-hmm. And I feel bad for the kid, but what did he bring to the Blues in his brief time that he was with, that when he was healthy?
Well, he's got that skating ability, that shake and bake ability. Yeah. Obviously, he's good with the puck on his stick. This guy was tearing up the American Hockey League. Like he's kind of like a tweener right now, right? He's too good for the American League.
Right.
And I don't know if his game is good enough right now to be the number one power play quarterback ahead of a guy like Krug, who obviously, has, whatever, 600-700 games under his belt, whatever it is. And he's a really good player. You get Faulk here. And the reality is with Krug here, they both kind of play the same type of position. The Blues needed to add some size and, you can't have that many. So in today's game, we all know that, right? On the back end,
right.
You can get away with having one of those guys. Having two in your top six is tough.
We know that here.
Yeah, right? We have that in Minnesota.
You know how that is. So, and just like the Blues are going to have to handle the physicality from Minnesota. Hey, the same thing goes from Minnesota. I mean, listen, these guys are going to be coming hard. I mean, Craig Berube gets these guys ready to play. Okay, like he gets in their face. Steve Ott, Jim Montgomery, these guys get them ready to go. You know, Mike Van Ryn, who runs the D, they got a really good coaching staff with some legit experience. I mean, all these guys had long careers in the National Hockey League, right? They understand, and they got credibility, and they find a way to get the most out of their players, and they get their attention very quickly. So as much as I talk about the physicality from Minnesota, St. Louis will still be able to bring that element in their game. But Perunovic, listen, I'm excited to see how he comes back next year and what his future holds here in St. Louis. You know, is he a guy that they project to be here long-term, or is he going to be a guy that maybe has to go elsewhere to truly get that opportunity? We'll have to wait and find out. But there's no question, dynamic offensive skill. We saw that in the preseason. He was fantastic in the preseason. And like I said, he was probably the best player in the league down in the American Hockey League in the 20 games he played down there, not just in Springfield, but the best player in the entire AHL. Yeah.
All right, final question for you, Andy. We've already kept you longer than I said we were going to keep you.
Yeah.
I know as of the time we are taping this, we don't know who has home ice advantage, but it doesn't seem like that matters to you guys in St. Louis. Official series prediction. It sounds like you're pretty confident in the St. Louis Blues.
I really am. You know, I mean, you look at the head-to-head matchups. I mean, obviously Minnesota had to play 2 games here in St. Louis down the stretch. Both games went into overtime. You know, I think St. Louis was up 4-1 in the third period against Minnesota in the last game.
Until they gifted Minnesota back in the game.
Minnesota came back. And I'm not just saying this because I work on the TV side with the Blues. I really believe the Blues are the better team. I think Minnesota's been a great story. They've had a great season. But I don't expect this to go 7. And I believe the Blues will win this game, and we'll say with 6. If it wasn't you guys, I would say 5. No.
Hey, I'm not afraid to tell you, Andy. I'm not afraid to tell you. I predicted the Wild in 5.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
Golly,
Andy, just wait until we post this on social media, and then the Wild fans can all attack you. So
they can.
And the Blues fans are going to come after me. That's all right.
That's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. But listen, here's how it works. When you are a local analyst, if you don't think your team is going to win, then you say no. Then you say they'll win in 7.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. If you ever come out and say our team's going to lose in 4 or 5.
No. But if you truly believe they're going to win, then you can throw out 5 or 6. And I do believe. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, it's going to be a phenomenal series. And the sad thing is, you have 2 teams, 2 of the best teams in the league, top 5, 6, whatever. Yeah. You know, we can argue either way. And it's unfortunate that they have to play each other, and the LA Kings and Edmonton play each other. You know,
Hey, Pat and Brandon, listen. Yeah, no one ever says that. Oh, it's too bad that St. Louis or Minnesota are going to lose in the first round. It's only, oh my God, can you believe that Toronto is going to have to play Tampa and they may lose it's always like about Toronto. Like they got the toughest matchup and whatever. But no, I'm with you there. It is hey, listen, St. Louis, there was a stretch, you know, where they lost in the first round 3 years in a row before they finally got over the hump, playing against Chicago. Right. And they played against Minnesota, against Minnesota one of those years where they were the favorite and they lost in 6 to Minnesota. But they kept, you know, they would go 2 up on Chicago and then they would lose the series. They finally broke through in 2016 and got to the conference final and beat Chicago in 7 games. So that was a huge lift for the Blues as an organization. But I do. And I don't know if you guys think these head-to-head matchups matter. I mean, Minnesota's a little bit different. It could be a little scary for Blues fans as well, because you could say, hey, Minnesota is due. They're finally due to beat St. Louis because they haven't done well against them in head-to-head matchups the last couple of years. But I think they're the better team, so I'm going to go with that answer.
I like your conviction, Andy. Andy, it was an absolute blast to have you on. We'd love to do it again with you sometime.
Let's do it again.
We will for sure, guys. Have fun during the series. It's going to be a lot of fun, and look forward to seeing you guys.
All right,
say hi to Monty and say hi to Perunovic. And
we'll be chirping you on Twitter.
Yeah, and
I'd expect nothing less.
If you see Perunovic at the rink, tell him we have a Bimbo's Pizza on the series.
Bimbo's Pizza.
Yeah, he'll know.
Bimbo's Pizza.
Right at the lake. He'll know.
Brandon, is Bimbo's Pizza, and is that any good or no?
He has never had it.
No, it's somewhere up north on the Iron Range. I'm a city's boy.
Yep.
Send me some of that, Pat.
Oh, you'll love it. Yep, you'll love it.
All right, thank you, Andy.
Thanks,
appreciate
Andy.
it.
All right, guys, take care.
All right, Andy Strickland, who covers the St. Louis Blues for Bally Sports Midwest and 590 The Fan KFNS. Before we talk with Pat Micheletti, let's talk about SodaStick.com. Get your original Minnesota sports-inspired goods at SodaStick.com. If you haven't seen the stuff yet, you got to check it out. All of their apparel screen printed here in Minnesota on super soft, super comfy shirts. You're going to love it, and we're going to hook you up with 15% off your next order. Just use the code KFAN for 15% off. That's SodaStick.com. Original Minnesota sports-inspired goods. Use the code KFAN for 15% off your next order. I will say, Pat, I was concerned going into the series. Now I'm feeling like St. Louis is going to be overconfident.
Well, you know what? Andy put a hard sell on the Blues, didn't he?
He did.
And rightly so. They're an awfully good team.
They're a good team.
They're an awfully good team. I still think at the end of the day, if Minnesota can get their forecheck rolling, and bang and everything that they need to do, I think the Blues D is exposable. I really do. So I think it's going to come down to the 5-on-5 play, and
he mentioned staying out of the box is going to be huge for the Minnesota Wild.
Exactly. Because that power play of the Blues, and both of them are, awfully good. And the struggles with the PK here, let's not sugarcoat it. It's not been great. So, I think that's going to be real important in the series.
All right, a couple of Gopher hockey related topics with you, Pat. Garrett Raboyne, who is the assistant coach for the Golden Gophers, named as the first head coach for the new Augustana men's hockey team, which will be Division I in the 2023-2024 season. I'm assuming you believe that was a good hire.
Yeah, very temperamental guy. Even keeled, knows it's going to take some time. It's a different scenario than the St. Thomas job in terms of, Rico Blasi had guys coming back, didn't have to recruit all 26 guys. That's something that's going to be new with Garrett. But they have the backing of the administration. They're building a new arena, all of those things that you'll need. But I'm happy for Garrett, because he's done a really good job with Minnesota and St. Cloud prior to that.
And Chaz Lucius going to the National Hockey League after just 1 year with the Golden Gophers. He was a first-round pick of Winnipeg last year, plays 1 year for Minnesota, had some health issues, and he had some health issues when he was getting drafted, before he got drafted, which might have led to him dropping a little bit. Overall, your thoughts on Lucius's one season with the Gophers, and is it in his best interest to be leaving after 1 year?
No, not at all. I don't know who's advising him, but he's not ready. Listen, he's got all the tools and all of that, but maturity wise and growth wise and being the best player at where you are before you go to another level, I don't think it was the best move for him long term. Now, there has been some rumor that he'll sign the contract and then go play in the Canadian Junior League, which I think would be that would ease my thought process on his decision, because he's not ready for pro hockey yet. So wish him the best. Hope he does well. Hope he makes it, because he's got off the chart skills. There's no question about it. But I don't think it was the best move for him right now.
All right, we're back to finishing every Beyond the Pod with stick taps. We've brought it back. I always feel like when I bring this up to you that you haven't thought about it by the time I bring it up.
Yeah, but I think about it and then I forget that we're doing it. But I'll let you start out again. That's fine.
I can start off. I'm going to start off with Austin Matthews, forward for the Toronto Maple Leafs. He became the first United States-born player ever to score 60 goals in a season in the National Hockey League. I was looking at the list, and obviously there's some big names up there. Brett Hull is kind of associated as being American, but was technically born in Canada. So
yes, he was.
Austin Matthews is the first one born in the United States to hit that 60-goal mark, and I believe it hadn't been done in a decade. 10 years ago was the last time it had happened in the league. So quite the season for Austin Matthews, but of course in Toronto you need to do it come playoff time.
Okay, I'm gonna stick to I'm gonna bring it to college hockey again. Last week I had the Minnesota State Mavericks and Mike Hastings and what they did all year. This one, Brandon, because we want to continue to grow the game. Alabama Huntsville has announced that they are trying to get back to revive their 1 year off from Division I hockey, and they've worked so hard. They've raised a lot of money, but they're not getting any love from any of the leagues, and I don't like that at all. So I'm all on the Alabama Huntsville bandwagon, and we have one of our own who may be the starting goaltender game one, who played his collegiate hockey there, and Cam Talbot. So
Nice.
For Cam, and because I know he's given some money to the program and to Alabama Huntsville, let's go.
All right, Pat, great job as always. Our last time for this year doing a Beyond the Pod during the regular season.
Yes,
Next time I talk to you, it'll be playoff hockey time.
I am pumped.
And hopefully
Have a great day.
hopefully a longer playoff hockey time than we're accustomed to.
Yeah, let's go all the way to June, whatever. So,
All right.
Thanks,
you, Pat.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Brandon.
it. All right, he's Pat Micheletti. I'm Brandon Mileski. This has been another episode of Beyond the Pod, as always, brought to you by SodaStick.com. Use the code KFAN for 15% off. We'll talk to you next week right here on Beyond the Pod. Bye.